didn't have that direct. Most of my association was remote or distant, or book distribution, traveling, serving in separation. The moments of association were certainly very memorable. But those that, so during the Prasadam time, we were hearing more stories and more Prabhupada stories, and amazing, amazing, amazing. Founder Acharya Shakti liberally passing on that Shakti to others. Question: is it possible to receive that? You heard, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. The enthusiasm of devotees to be doing some service for Prabhupada. And, mission impossible is not impossible. It's somehow, like that story that I told, lady in Dallas. Her profession was, she in her words, a hairdressing salon. That was her occupation. And Prabhupada asked her, "You look like a well-to-do lady. Can you build me a restaurant?" First time they met, on the street. She came out, she just saw Prabhupada and was attracted, and Prabhupada, smiled and said what he said, and she said yes, and she did it. Like, that's unusual, isn't it? And so forth and so on. And with obstacles, yes, and trials and tribulations, yes, but the mission must go on, and somehow, just like Prabhupada's words, and on board the Jaladuta, writing this wonderful prayer in Bengali, "I don't know why you brought me here." It's mission impossible. People filled with ignorance and passion. That hasn't changed. People filled with ignorance and passion. How is it going to be possible for them to understand the message of Vasudeva? But you brought me here, and so if you wish me to dance, make me dance, as you like. And that spirit was passed on. And these 5 are also ways of receiving that which was passed on. As I was speaking in the morning session, the temples were, at least our vernacular was, I don't know exactly the Prabhupada's words. I was looking for it, but I didn't have time to find the exact words. Bases from which we would send out our men here and there. So it was missionary. We were to receive, but we were also to give abundantly, and qualified, unqualified, abundantly. And part of the service itself helped us become purified, so that we could become more qualified. But the Krishna Shakti was invested in very new people. And that hasn't changed. It depends on the receptivity. Is it an exaggeration? Bhagavatam distribution. The verse, Canto 12, Chapter 13, verse number 13, speaks about gifting Srimad Bhagavatam on a golden throne. And one who makes that gift will go back to God. It doesn't say when, but it will go back to God. It will enter the spiritual kingdom. So I was curious. I started exploring and asking, is it literal or figurative? You have to have a golden throne when you give your Bhagavatam set to somebody? What does it mean? Is it literal or is it figurative? And research, and the answer by both, primarily with Vishwanath and also with Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbhas. It's explicitly metaphorical, and the golden part of the golden throne has to do with the comparison. It's a metaphor. He says it's metaphorical. So the metaphor of comparing the sun, the king of all planets is the sun. The king of all scriptures is the Bhagavatam. So the Bhagavatam is sun-like, giving golden rays, like, from the Canto 1, Chapter 3 verse, the light of the Bhagavad verse, giving light in this age of darkness. So the goldenness of the golden throne is the Bhagavatam itself, which is sun-like, giving golden rays into this realm of darkness. And the throne has to do with, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, during this month of Bhadra, the sun passes through the constellation. Moon passes through different constellations. The sun passes once a year through different constellations. So this month, the sun passes through the Leo constellation. So Leo and lion are likened, the Shingha, Sana, Rishingha, Asana. So it's the throne is this month of Bhadra where the sun is passing through the sign of Leo. That's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation. So what do you do to meet the qualification? Just do it in the month of Bhadra. That's your golden throne is taken care of. The goldenness is the sun-like Bhagavatam itself, and the month is the throne. Done. Golden throne. And Jiva Goswami says essentially the same thing. Not same language, but essentially the same thing. So there may be some indirect meanings sometimes in Scripture, but to say what this verse says here, I'll read the second verse. These 5 limbs of devotional service are the best of all. Even a slight performance of these 5 awakens love for God, love for Krishna. Slight performance. Now again, the potential is there. Then the receptivity has to match what the potential is offering us. We don't want to see, we can say what we don't want, we can say what we do want. Reality distinguished from illusion. What we don't want is illusion. We want reality. Reality, this Bhagavatam gives reality distinguished from illusion. Illusion is, well, once upon a time, the wonderful things were done because Prabhupada was on the planet, but it's not the same time anymore, and so dwindle and perish. That's illusion. And then the reality is, their potency is the same potency. One may not be able to go and cook for Prabhupada or do the other things and other things and other things, or write letters to Prabhupada. I didn't write letters to Prabhupada because I was told, don't write letters to Prabhupada. I was like, okay, Prabhupada is too busy. He has too much correspondence, too many important things to do. So don't write letters. Ask your GBC or ask the senior devotee, please. Don't write letters. So I didn't write any letters. I was in the box instead of out of the box kind of a follower. But I didn't feel disconnected. And same for anyone today. You need not feel disconnected. The same Srimad Bhagavatam, same Chaitanya Charitamrita, same Bhagavad Gita, same transcendental messages are available for each and every one. And as the dynamic of the Hare Krishna movement, the explosion of the Hare Krishna movement, of course, was inspired by the Shakti of our founder Acharya. But the method hasn't changed. And to connect with that Shakti of our founder Acharya, take up the method. That hasn't changed. Without naming names, there are persons who haven't lost that Shakti. And they're doing amazing things today. Literally. And around, 360, 365. They're amazing things. We can also. And some of us are older generation folks. And the older generation folks are naturally concerned for the preservation of the vitality so it doesn't fade. So how to pass on that vitality to the next generation, to the next generation, etc. One is to set a good example. And as Prabhupada, how old was Prabhupada? But he set an example that was contagious. So set a good example, as the older devotees need, set a good example, and then speak the message directly and explicitly, like I'm trying to do right now. These 5 are meant for all of us in the room, whatever age one is, etc., etc. Receive it. Feel grateful for what you have received. Share with others that which you have received. Say thank you for the mercy of our founder Acharya and disciplic succession to give us all those things, and then repeat. Though that's the Chaitadarpana Marjanam process. So let's go through the 5. Can we go back to the verse? Sadhu Sangha, that's how bhakti life begins. Adau Shadha Tata Sadhu Sangha. So some preliminary faith goes somewhere when there's Sadhu Sangha. And from Sadhu Sangha with faith, then you do with sadhus what sadhus do. You do bhajana kriya. And then so forth. The other of the 6 of the 9 processes of bhakti continue. But starts with sadhu sangha. Added to some preliminary faith. And then comes other forms of activity. Nama Sankirtan. So I understand built into the schedule this afternoon is going together on Nama Sankirtan. Very nice. So we're going to be doing all of these, except for living in Vrindavan. We'll circle back to that one. Bhagavat Shravan, hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So hearing the Bhagavatam, hearing Krishna or about Krishna. I'll spend some time with the Bhagavat Shravan part and try to wind it up in discussion is always the best part of any class, especially with a very lively audience like this one. Another one of the requests that I made this morning is collectively the devotees here in the room and not in the room, there's many devotees besides the ones in the room, get together, consider how the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically the special potency that comes from Bhadra Purnima, and how sets of Srimad Bhagavatam can be distributed. And I'll share this with those in the room that are ladies. In Naperville, except for one, the team that's taking responsibility for distributing the Bhagavatam sets are ladies. They're not men. They're ladies. But they're very dedicated. Somehow they got some very, very soft-spoken ladies. They just like book distribution. And I know why they like it, because it's something that was pleasing to Prabhupada. And those that are dear to Prabhupada want to encourage, and so they encourage. And so my request, I'm repeating it, Bhagavat Shravan request is, in addition to your own activities of reading the Bhagavatam and engaging with others in reading together Srimad Bhagavatam, little reading groups, pick a number, a realistic number, and stay committed to that number of between now and September 17th, I think it is. Distribute sets of the Bhagavatam. It's doable. Just, the intention, drives intention. Intention drives attention. And you give attention, as Vaisheshika Prabhu is cliche. Where attention goes, energy flows. You've heard that one? Yeah. So where attention goes, energy flows. So I'm trying to draw attention to this opportunity, Bhagavat Shravan, and it's contagious. Once you start, it's like, wow, that was joyful. Even if it was not easy, it's joyful. Joyfulness doesn't have to be easy. Joyfulness is seva. And a seva that's very, how much sacrifice did our founder Acharya undergo to provide us with this Bhagavatam? Whew. Again and again, over years and years and years and years. Along with Chaitanya Charitamrita and so many other things. So, to reciprocate with that gesture of his gift to us, receive the gift and pass it on to others. And he'll smile. What more can you want? He'll pat you on the head. Thank you very much. You pleased me very much by this effort. I remember, I'll share this with you. This is the good old days story. The temple that I joined was in Boston. And at that time, there were only 4 temples that had some substantial number of devotees in the temple. This was 1970, substantial number of devotees. At least that was the impression I had. So Prabhupada personally assigned quotas because there wasn't a BBT. At that time, it was ISKCON Press. And ISKCON Press was based in the temple. So he assigned quotas of how many Back to Godhead magazines would be shipped, at least this is what I was told, to 4 temples, LA, New York, Boston, and Montreal. There may have been others. And we hit the mark. And Prabhupada said, very good, double it. And then the books would be shipped, and we didn't say, well, wait a minute. He assigned the number, and, we did it. And then, very good, then it wasn't double it each month, or each fortnightly, each Back to Godhead magazine publication. But he pushed us a bit, encouraged us, but pushed us a bit. So I'm doing that. I'm nudging you. Please don't say ouch. Please figure out a way to make Prabhupada smile, because it was so dear to him. And you can know it, even if it's not physically before you to see him smile. You can feel it, because it's that kind of an exchange with our founder Acharya. Receive it, because along with distributing, that is ensuring. I'll just share this little thing. Yesterday, I mentioned this morning. Yesterday, we were at the Hindu temple in Carbondale. And the chief priest was wearing yellow. There were 2 guys.
It wasn't me.
No.
I'm wearing yellow, but...
It wasn't Shankar Pandit. He knew many mantras that Shankar Pandit doesn't know. And he repeated many mantras that Shankar Pandit wouldn't repeat. But he knew his stuff. And there was another fellow who was kind of like the administrator. I think he is a medical doctor or something like that. Two men basically operating the temple there. And I made a little appeal for Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, the whole presentation was that, and at the end there were some copies of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then there was some discussion. As far as I could understand it, there were at least 2, maybe 3 ladies that already had the Srimad Bhagavatam in their home. One of them said, I started reading, but I didn't finish it. So we made some arrangement, some suggestion, form a reading group. Rupa Vilas will help you form a reading group or lead the reading group or whatever, somewhere, somehow. And then regularly read Srimad Bhagavatam, because not just, it's, even if it sits on people's shelf, it's auspicious in their home. Just see it sitting on their shelf. Just touching it is auspicious. What to speak of opening it regularly and reading it, that their life can change. That exactly as the Bhagavatam says. Krishna very soon will be fixed in their heart. Very soon, that's relative. What does that mean? So, I'm sure, I'm confident that not only the one person that wants a Bhagavatam set, just because we brought it up and who knows what's going to happen, and they said yes. And then some others are going to say yes, and it's just you don't ask, you don't get a yes. There's more stories. Sankirtan stories are easy to get lost on. Bhagavat Shravan, Sadhu Sangha, Nam Sankirtan, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathuravas, Shri Murtira, Shraddhaya, Sevan, worshiping with faith and veneration. Shraddhaya Sevan. And regularly, with faith and regularly. This is just principles of yoga. Do something that's an authorized activity from the right source. Do it regularly with faith. 1, 2, 3. The 3 elements of practice of yoga. Patanjali. So, let's circle back to Mathuravas. Very simple. If you can't live in Vrindavan or can't live in Mathura or sacred place, you can visit, and purification just from visiting and by remembering. And one of the ways that you can help remember those holy places is by hearing about them, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam and immersing yourself in its message, and something happens. Here's what happens. The message of the Bhagavatam sits in your heart. Many of us, I'm one, many of us have had the experience that in course of time, that's what happens. The Bhagavatam is not something over there, it's something that's in here. And that's an aspect or a feature of Mathuravas. Your thoughts go naturally to the subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy places, the pastimes of Krishna, the form of Krishna, the descriptions of Krishna, and so forth. It just happens very naturally. Mathuravas. And eventually, some persons in the room may end up residing in Mayapur or Vrindavan or somewhere where there's a holy place. Or you make your home a holy place and live like that. Then the place becomes a holy place, like a temple. So we're having this little festival for, this is Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathuravas, Sri Murtira, Shraddhaya Sevan. That's why I picked the verse. And then do it again and do it again and for the rest of our lives. And encourage others to do the same. As Prabhupada did with us, so we do with others, following his example. I'm going to stop and see if there's some discussion. Again, thank all of you for who have very kindly come to participate. Maybe lunch prashadam was too good. You're all a little zoned out. How was the sweet rice? Good. How many did you have? Only one? Okay. Anyway, we have a portable microphone if anyone would like to share something.
Guru Maharaja, it's not a question. Three devotees in this room, they wanted Srimad Bhagavatam, so I would like to communicate to you. It's Arun Prabhu and where is that? Divya Mataji and Hari Krishna Prabhu.
Oh, fantastic. You have any friends? We all have friends. You know, with a polite little, hey. And then, you know, the next part is read, find a method. Our leadership could consider methods to inspire options A, B, and C that suits people's schedule and their lives and their, you know, their nature. And so sometimes ladies and sometimes this and sometimes that. So they can read together and, you know, not only have the books and get the benefit of having the book in their home, but the benefit of regular reading somehow or another. It's easy and it's transcendentally wonderful. Well, thank you. Arun, Hare Krishna, and who's the other? Vidya. Very good. And invite your friends. And people that aren't in the room, encourage them, you know, etc. So, other comments, questions? Yes. I remember whenever we would have classes, you would always have something nice to offer. It's been a while, but
it has been. And I was just wondering if you could put into words what it's like to experience Raganuga Bhakti. If you could put it into words. Yes.
What, the first step is qualification. The first step is, you know where the door is, and you study the door before you try to walk through the door. And there's a big sign on the door that says, here's how you can become qualified. My response to your question is, first become qualified by the process of when you're doing your sadhana. It's very simple. It's not for the sake of doing, checking the boxes, doing the do's and avoiding the don'ts, and then you become a good sadhaka. That's a necessity, but that's a prerequisite for walking through that door. Let me answer your question by giving this example. Before coming here to St. Louis, I was in Naperville. We had some programs in Naperville. And there's one young man, he's now in high school. I've known him since he was like a little guy. And now he's, a really good youth musician. He's part of the, most temples have youth that really, they don't like japa, but they like music. And kirtan is music. So without belaboring, he came up after the evening class, one of the evening classes, and said, I'm losing taste for kirtan. And I didn't inside my jaw dropped because he loves kirtan. He's a really good musician. He went and spent, a month in the summer with the Harinam party in New York City just because he liked kirtan. His mom was very supportive because it's good association there and blah, blah, blah. And he just, this is after I have a personal question. I'm losing my taste. And what to do? then my answer to him started with your question. I said it's something like moving from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti to Raga Bhakti. But the qualification, he already knows how to do music, but it's not just the rudiments, in his words, the rudiments of mridanga playing, harmonium playing, and I got it down. I know the riffs, I know the this and the that's. So my absorption previously was in the rules and regulations. And that's necessary to move on. But the prerequisite to move on is, then what's the purpose of those vidhis? What's the purpose of vidhi sadhana bhakti? The purpose of the vidhis is to purification, so you can find that raga bhakti door. And then you follow what the Rupa Goswami teaches us, what raga bhakti is. And then it's one of those things that's described in the Vedas as beyond, it can be described, but the experience can't be described beyond, there's words that describe the experience. You don't experience it just from the words. You have to enter the doorway. And then, the procedure is, what the procedure is. The eternal associates, or those that are associated with the eternal associates, like for us, for example, the Goswamis. They're eternal associates, but they're also acting as if they're following the eternal associates. They're not presenting themselves as this is Rupa Manjari and that's Rati Manjari, and they're this Goswami and that Goswami. And we follow them. And follow them means, you hear about them, etc., etc., etc. And then, because they're going to tell you about the eternal associates, because that's what's in their heart. And they don't just, blast you with it. They don't ignore the vidhis of sadhana bhakti, but their heart is more deeply inspired, so you follow those personalities. And the feeling is the feeling of spontaneous rather than, Prabhupada made it very simple. Here's one of the very simple ways he put it. With deity worship, it's one of these 5. With deity worship, there's rules and regulations of this and that. And you follow them. And at a certain point, you anticipate, for example, Lord Chaitanya's appearance day is coming, so you plan the festival and how the deities will be decorated and what the offerings will be made, and it's spontaneous out of love, beyond the regulations per se. You don't ignore the regulations, but that's not the inspiring agent. So that's what Raga Nuga, it's a sadhana. In the beginning it's sadhana, but the Raga Marg starts with a sadhana. You practice like that, in a way that's in the direction of that which is spontaneous. Although you may not be there yet, you're following the path of those who are. How's that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. We have 3 minutes to keep our schedule. Anyone else? Yes?
The narrations in the morning, especially about how the St. Louis temple got started, was just super impressive, magical, of how Krishna supported the devotees trying to serve him. It reminded me of how Shamsundar Prabhu in his book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, he expresses in the San Francisco temple, they were at wit's end of how they were going to get money for the next month on rent, and all of a sudden, 7 a.m., him and Mother Malati are walking, and $100 bills are raining from the air, from the clouds up above, and they don't know where it came from. We don't hear so much of stuff like that happening nowadays. I guess my question is, and my contemplation is, Ye yatamam prapadyante tam sadeva bhajamyaham. Krishna reciprocates with the degree of risk and effort we take for his service. Is that an accurate principle?
Well, risk depends on how you define risk. Foolish, no.
Mm-hmm.
But directed, yes. And when there's a direction, then it's not a risk. But the uncertainty is there, for sure, but not a risk. Because whatever the outcome, that's what the outcome is, and there's not a risk. You tried. Like Prabhupada said about his own efforts. If he came back empty-handed, that's up to Krishna. So, I'm just, in response to your question, I'm drilling a little bit on the word risk, proportionate to the risk we take. So I'm exercising that word a little bit. But accepting the position of being the instrument of a transcendental authority, a Purusheya Shabda Praman, then that there's not a risk. It's sincerity to fulfill the instruction, regardless of the outcome. And when Krishna gives, Prabhupada's way of saying, the spiritual master never gives an instruction to a disciple beyond their capacity to do. And similarly, Krishna never puts a devotee in some difficulty beyond their ability to handle it, although it may seem like too much. So, it's a relationship. My short answer is it's a relationship. And how much do we want that relationship? For those that had these magical things happen, my sense is it was because of the relationship, the commitment to the relationship and fulfilling the relationship, their part to their capacity. And somehow it should happen, will happen. It's 3:30, and we have a schedule.
We have next 1 hour we are preparing for the AKS. We have enough time for that. Like entertaining question as well.
I'll take one more question, with your permission.
I don't have a question. Let someone ask a question. All right, last question.
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj?
Mathura Vas.
Mathura was, yeah. You said, any holy place or temple, particularly that word Mathura, it could have been Brajvas or
Yeah.
anything. Is that just to fit the poetry or is figurative or, what is the range of that Mathura was?
Well, it depends.
You said Mayapur or temple.
Yeah, that's fine.
The Lord's Dom.
Now, here's once upon a time, Prabhupada was visiting at our rented building on Henry Street in Brooklyn. And Prabhupada, I remember very clearly, sitting on the Vyasasan, opening his eyes really wide, saying, "This temple is not in Brooklyn. It's in Vaikuntha." His voice drove out like that. His eyes big. And then we moved from the rented building to an owned building in Manhattan, and he said the same thing. "This temple is not in Manhattan, this is in Vaikuntha." And I was telling that story, and someone said, "Prabhupada said the same thing in Los Angeles." This temple is not in Los Angeles. So what makes it Vaikuntha? Krishna's at the center. And when Krishna is at the center, that's Vaikuntha. The place becomes Vaikuntha because Krishna is at the center. So Mathuravas means that, these from our founder Acharya. And yet he could have said something, it's a holy place. Reside in a holy place, such as. You could have done the such as. Maybe it fit the meter with a verse or something, Mathuravas. Instead of Vrajavas, that's more syllables, Mathuravas. But Vraja is in Mathura, so it's included. So it's the essence is what's important, not the nomenclature. The essence is that Krishna is at the center, the holy place where Krishna is at the center. So reside in a temple, and that place is, or make your home a temple, and that's Vaikuntha. And then comes his question, the Raga Bhakti question. And the Raga Bhaktas, not just by vidhi, follow vidhis in their home or the place where they reside become Vaikuntha, but then in more internal. It's exactly what I said to this young man, teenager. You need to enter Raga Bhakti. In terms of your music, that is to say, for whom are you doing it? Not just, this riff and that riff. And, accompany your friends so you can play good music together and you get this nice relationship and musicality thing going, and that's happiness. That's not, you're not feeling happiness. Because the purpose for which any of that may be in place, when it's successful, it's that Krishna is pleased. So make that your meditation. I didn't say practice Raga Bhakti. I said it's like becoming more internal in the doing the do's and not doing the don'ts, and that's Mathuravas. Okay, 3:35. So who's the announcer? Who's the MC? Who's going to tell us what's next? Get ready for the yagya, right? What's that mean? What does it mean?
So next 1 hour we are going to prepare for yagya, and while we are doing that, we are going to play a few recorded video. Mahamuni Prabhu, Ishwaripati Prabhu, they got recorded.
Okay.
We'll be hearing their recording.
Okay.
And next 1 hour we'll prepare for yagya. 4:30 yagya will begin.
And those that are to prepare for the yagya, they know what their assignment is, right?
Yes.
And everybody else sits here and watches the screen.
Everybody else will be watching this.
Okay. So 1 hour. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.
Sai Maharaj ki jai. Nitai Gaur Nataraj